Evaluation 1. In what way does your media product use, develop, or challenge forms and conventions of real media products? At the beginning of the course, I looked at multiple short films such as Unleaded, The Most Beautiful Thing, and TikTok. We concluded that the pieces averaged around 5 minutes, so we decided to make ours around the same runtime. We also found that the characters should be kept to a minimum, 1 to 2, so that the characters can be properly developed and more relatable so that the viewers stay intrigued. Also, we found that the film should only be filmed within a maximum of 3 locations, however we picked 2. This was so that the narrative could be easier to develop. Finally, we found that the film should have either one of 2 endings, open or closed. This was as theorised by Baths, so it's either clear what happens afterwards or it is left for the audience to figure out. First, I looked at The Most Beautiful Thing. The protagonist is a lonely, isolated boy who looks for acceptance and confidence. Now nearing the end of his school days, all he seeks is to end it with someone who he can consider his friend or girlfriend. Therefore, halfway through the film, he meets a girl, a deaf girl by the name of Emily, and they live out their relationship through the use of pen and paper, further following the convention of a simple plot, often not involving in-depth dialogue. Their love is momentarily halted by an arrogant, cool kid who tries to steal the kiss from the protagonist's girlfriend. However, she eventually speaks out to him and he ends up asking her to prom, which is one of his greatest concerns. This is the same classic perspective that we are trying to achieve with Harry, although more so with his friends rather than a girlfriend. The idea is to create sympathy for the protagonist through slow-paced editing and large open and empty space around to convey loneliness, just like the boy on the bench in The Most Beautiful Thing. This is matched by Harry sitting within a library on his own doing work. We also only have one main character, which helps develop the relationship and understanding between them and the audience. Our film does, however, challenge some traditional conventions. Grimsky's hegemony states representation is unequal. Dominant ideology is represented the most, and therefore, that's what people are most likely to believe. What is meant by this is that the certain belief is held by so many people regardless of whether it is true or not. People then believe it. This is typically seen with stereotypes which tend to be inaccurate in some circumstances. However, some people still believe them. Our character is a white teenage male, which is usually seen as a dominant and popular with others. However, Harry is an isolated, lonely boy who is towered over by all others, which challenges this theory. The Most Beautiful Thing is the opposite. A boy who's slightly spotty and ethnic minority and has glasses is seen as a stereotypical nerd. A film that also challenges this convention is 2am The Smiling Man, as the protagonist is a fairly built young white male who are stereotypically seen as independent and strong. However, this male is seen running away from an evidently older and more frail man. Take Notice follows other conventions of 2am, as 2am utilises low-key lighting in the mise-en-scene to create an eerie and tense atmosphere throughout. This is also used in our piece throughout the typing scene with a radicalist. We tone down the lighting to purposely create a tense feel. This paired with the non-diegetic music, which is also used in 2am, adds to this eerie atmosphere. Take Notice utilises an open ending just like 2am. An open ending leaves the audience to figure out what happened and what is going to happen later on. The interrogation scene leaves the audience in suspense, allowing for a negotiated reading. 2am is the same, as we don't know what happens after the protagonist is seen with the smiling man. Tessa Perkins suggests stereotypes are assumptions we make based on groups of people. However, they are not always negative. They can change if a majority of that targeted group are seen in a different perspective than before. They are not always about minorities and can sometimes be true, and can be about your own group. This is best represented in Unleaded. This film follows many stereotypes of groups of people, seen through the hippies that wear baggy clothes and smoke marijuana, speak very slowly and appear drowsy. Further reinforced by the Asian clerk working at the petrol garage, which is a stereotype of Asians working at petrol garages, especially at night time. This stereotyping can be seen in Take Notice, best represented by Harry's nerd appearance, which is pristine uniform and few friends, which conforms the stereotypes of nerds. However, Take Notice also challenges the stereotype of the radicalist terrorist, as stereotypically in today's mainstream media view, it would appear as a white Christian boy who looks innocent is not capable of hurting others. This is also best seen in Inspire, where the woman judges the Muslim man and doesn't want him to help, whilst all other white, more upper class people simply walk past, which is where the Muslim man then helps the lady with her pram, showing he isn't what the woman thought he was. There was also the poster. I found 3 posters with elements that reside in all that were necessary and were all part of professional-made short films, with some even winning awards. Therefore, their posters would make for good examples. Firstly, the elements that I managed to find correlating between all examples. In all of the examples, I found that institution credits were present, displaying significant roles within the production of the film. This was also met with social media websites and logos to display where additional information could be found about the film. Therefore, I found it necessary to implement these components into my design. In the first design, Navis, the title resided at the top. It was in a unique font with a smaller narrative outline underneath in smaller writing. There is the main subject area of attention in the centre, a woman with flames behind her, making the woman very visible. At the bottom, social media icons are also seen to indicate where information about the film can be found, as well as the institution credits to show who is involved in the production of the film. One other standout factor from the others was that the poster was landscape, and the others were portrait. Therefore, I adapted the subjects of interest in the centre of the poster for my design to conform with this convention. For my design, the protagonist will be walking and have an empty space around him. This introduces him without giving too much away about the location and tone of the film. Logan, another poster, also has the subject or protagonist in the centre of the poster. This time the title resides at the bottom sector of the poster. Underneath this, once again, is the institution credits, and this time a website in which information about the film is viewed. The only text at the top is the producer. However, this is only relevant if a well-known actor or producer or director is used, so in our case this won't be necessary. From Logan, I have decided that I will use a portrait design as it conforms the traditional structure of posters. This allowed me to show less of the location surrounding the protagonist, as well as fill in all the surrounding space with logos, titles and credits. This was the best way to execute all requirements for the poster without having dead space, which couldn't be done effectively with a landscape poster. The final poster was Chief. Once again, the subject of interest is in the centre middle, with no other elements around it. The title follows the first poster by being placed at the top. This poster has awards at the bottom of the screen, which could be used for space filling. Finally, as the same for all the other posters, institution credits are present at the very bottom. From Chief, I decided to also adapt the title at the top of the poster, as it best spreads the text so that the image isn't completely isolated. This also looks more appropriate as the bottom was no longer text heavy. This also spreads the colour pattern of black and white text around the complementing yellow background and pink logo colours, overall making the poster more aesthetically pleasing. Finally is the review. I found that SFX had more adaptable parts that I could use. This magazine utilises a very scrambled design with pictures scattered with text surrounding them. The articles are numbered and highlighted so the reader can follow what the film and picture is being talked about. The writing itself is informal and addresses the general vibe of the film rather than going in depth about the exact production techniques used. The pictures used are also large and capture the moment of significance of the main character or intriguing part. SFX also utilises a superhero or hero subgenre throughout the mainstream interest. From SFX, I decided to only take one element, which was the formality of the text, as it still covers the review while being easy to understand and follow. The slight use of slang and informal text allows for a much more relaxed read. Large words and detailed analysis isn't overly used to bombard the reader with overwhelming information, instead just providing enough to let the reader find out about the film and whether it's worth watching, which conforms with the other informal film reviews. Next is Empire. Empire has a more formal layout than SFX, with column writing with a chain of photos through the middle, more like a news article. The pictures appear in a circular form, also capturing important elements of the film. The titles are also in bold and are used at the top of the page. The writing itself, however, isn't very formal and still just highlights the overall film and intentions rather than the micro elements. Overall, my poster follows the layout of Empire as it is clearly laid out and complies with any traditional formatted reviews. It opens with a tagline and some synergy credits, summarising the film and giving it an insight on who is involved with the production. Then followed by the rating and review itself, to then conclude so that the reader knows if they want to see the film. This also well conforms with other film review layouts. Finally is Total Film. Total Film utilises a few large pictures within the top half of the page, followed by columns of text below. There is also a pull quote within the centre of the left page. This is to attract the reader further by referencing the film in others, which would cause interest. Finally, there is an insert on the right side. This can be used to fill space, but very lightly talks about other films that may have relevance to the main talk point. My film poster uses the same picture usage as Total Film, as it well represents the protagonist and scenery of the film. My picture for the review, much like my poster, has the protagonist in the centre with little around him, which shows a visual representation of the film without revealing too much, which also conforms with typical film review pictures.